All right, today we're diving into a pretty mind-bending idea about consciousness. It's called the virtual ego framework, and it poses a really profound question. What if your reality isn't something you just watch, but a simulation that you are actively, well, running? So here's the core concept in a nutshell. Imagine the entire universe is this vast, incredibly complex program. And your mind? Your mind is the screen that renders that program into the tangible, day-to-day reality you actually perceive. Now, this isn't just some abstract idea. It's a powerful metaphor that actually blends ancient philosophy with modern computer science. You see, the virtual ego framework, or VEF for short, doesn't come from just one place. It's a model that pulls together ideas from psychology, philosophy, and computing to try and paint a cohesive picture of how consciousness works. And to really get it, we have to start with its most fundamental and probably its biggest concept. At the very heart of the VEF is this idea of the supercomputer. It asks us to imagine that the universe isn't just a bunch of random, lifeless matter. Instead, picture it as a massive, conscious entity, something that is constantly processing information and running the very program that we call reality. But here's the kicker. This cosmic supercomputer isn't just running a single straight line of a story. No way. Think of it more like a quantum computer that's exploring every single potential outcome of every single event, all at the same time. This means that within its vast consciousness, every possibility already exists. So you might be wondering, if the universe contains every possible reality, why on earth do we only experience one? Well, this is where we come in. This is where our personal consciousness fits into this huge cosmic system. The VEF has a name for your individual consciousness, a virtual machine, or a VM. You can think of it like a single computer terminal that's hooked up to a massive server. Your mind is like a localized piece of that universal supercomputer, and its main job is to perceive. And this is really the core dynamic, you know? The supercomputer holds this infinite potential, all these possibilities. But your virtual machine, your conscious ego, it just can't process all of that at once. So what does it do? It selects one single thread, one storyline out of countless options, and it renders it into the consistent, linear reality that you and I experience every single day. But like any system, this one is imperfect. The VEF identifies a kind of glitch in the system that explains a really common form of human suffering, that feeling of being completely and utterly stuck. It calls this glitch the Zenotrap. So what is the Zenotrap? It's basically a recursive mental loop where our ego gets stuck re-rendering the same narrative again and again and again. In psychology, you might know this as rumination. Now, it's usually a painful story, but here's the key. It's a predictable one. And sometimes our minds actually prefer a familiar pain over the scary uncertainty of change. Let's break down how this trap gets set. First, something painful and chaotic happens. Our mind, in an effort to protect us, scrambles to create a coherent story to make sense of the chaos. Then, our consciousness starts replaying that story. And over time, that story stops being just a memory. It becomes the very program our virtual machine continuously runs, effectively trapping us in the past. The real problem here is that our consciousness continually re-renders a traumatic narrative. It's not just that you're remembering something bad that happened. It's that your mind is actively rebuilding that trauma moment by moment, which makes it feel like it's always happening right now. Okay, so if we can get stuck in a loop, the good news is that the VEF also points to a way to get out. And it's not about trying to fight the old program. It's about initiating a full system reboot. This is the pathway to healing and making real, lasting change. This reboot has a name: ego transcendence. This is basically any experience that temporarily hits the pause button on the ego's constant, rigid storytelling. It's like hitting Ctrl+Alt+Delete on your mind. That looping program stops, and for a brief moment, a window of opportunity opens up, a chance for change. So how do we actually trigger one of these reboots? Well, the VEF points to some really powerful real-world experiences. Things like deep meditation, where that inner narrator finally goes quiet. Or achieving a flow state where you're so absorbed in what you're doing that you lose all sense of self. Even experiencing profound awe, like looking up at a starry night sky, can be enough to silence the ego's looping story. Now, getting that window of opportunity is the first crucial step. But the second, and arguably the most important step, is deciding what you're going to do with it. This is where we shift from being a passive observer of our own program to becoming an active author. And this right here is the most empowering part of this whole framework. Healing isn't about pretending a painful event never happened. You can't just delete the old code. But during that reboot window, you have the chance to consciously choose to write a new one. This is a core idea in practices like cognitive behavioral therapy. It's all about changing the story you tell yourself about the past to create a healthier narrative for your virtual machine to render. So the virtual ego framework really reframes your life, doesn't it? It's not something that just happens to you, but a story that you are actively telling yourself. You are both the screen and the programmer. Which leaves us with one final ultimate question. If you are the author, what story will you write next?